They have a choice. They can distance themselves and they have an option, but they uh, don't have the necessary wherewithal at this point of time to completely abandon the infrastructure because it's a reality that the American infrastructure is there on these bases. And then there is a political congruence of views. Countries like UAE, Bahrain, they are part of Abraham Accords. UAE especially is very closely allied to Israel and is open to the blandishments of United States and is therefore willingly, I think, co-opting in this uh, endeavor. So it's very difficult to say what leverages do they have at this point of time. Unfortunately, the geography makes them vulnerable to Iranian drone and missile attacks, and that's a reality which has not altered. Yes, American umbrella, air defense shield, some kind of support can come in handy. But at the end of the day, they are quite vulnerable. Their pipelines, their water supply installations, they are very, very vulnerable, and that makes them very susceptible to Iranian attacks. And I don't think so that they have a very strong leverage vis-a-vis Iran, which in a conflict which Iran has considered to be asymmetric, Iran has more leverage. I think what United States is doing is keeping its all options open because their framework is yet not been accepted, what they offered. And President Trump obviously wishes to use this agreement as a war trophy in an election year. And till the time that objective is not achieved clearly, unequivocally, which could be brandished in front of his MAGA base, I'm sure he'll not relent. And for that purpose, he's keeping his options open. And that is why the Gulf allies, they're also being encouraged to remain vigilant and be ready for any kind of a standoff with Iran. And Iran, though it has permitted a number of carriers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, around 70, 80 ships have passed. It's a kind of a entente cordial, a little softening of the stance with the US concurrence. US had also alluded to some kind of a softening of that blockade, but at the same time they keep you know uh, calibrating their options, and sometimes they become more stringent, sometimes they allow. So it's all a strategy. It's a bigger it's a subset of the bigger set of problems which revolves around the fundamental agreement whether a ceasefire would be clinched on Iranian terms or the US terms. On both sides, there are hardened positions because Iranians, Revolutionary Guards, they are also a fragmented entity at this point of time. They have been hit hard. And they have a young leadership, and there are possibilities of internecine conflict. So the leadership is also hedging its bet by not conceding too much to United States. And on the US part, I've already spoken about compulsions of President Trump. So that makes the whole scenario quite complicated, in which any slip up on any wrong step can lead to another escalatory spiral. If he gets involved directly, I think there are possibilities of or deal being clinched because his word is law. But remember that he's also not like his father now because his father had accumulated power over 4 decades. Mujtaba Khamenei has just ascended to this position, and he is dependent upon IRGC and what they say and what they want. So it would not be very easy for him to have a final say because whatever he'll articulate would be a reflection of the internal consensus. So we cannot be very sanguine about the possibilities of a quick deal just because he joins. Yes, the President Trump's statement that it looks like that I'll have a direct contact with him. That is good, but we know President Trump's so many other statements. Those have also been proven incorrect lately because he gives the statements in to media and he's prone to giving those statements. But whether those statements are actually carried out further, that's another question. So that is why I'm a little skeptical about his Mustafa Khamenei's involvement and the possibility of a quick fix because fundamental issues those remain, and those are the leverages that Iran thinks are the insurance. That is the control of Strait of Hormuz. They would like to keep some kind of control till the time the whole process of sanctions does not start unraveling, and they do not build a kind of trust into this process. So here they are all under a stultifying hold of a mistrust of the countries. And then their next leverage is the nuclear enrichment. They won't like to abandon that capability for the peaceful use because they again consider that as their fundamental right as a sovereign country. So these sticking points and principal contradictions still remain. I think the narratives are very clear. United States wants that it should be an abject surrender, a complete victory for them, which President Trump can go and show it to his MAGA base before this midterm elections and tout himself as a strong leader who has done a better deal than the previous presidents like Obama. On part of Iranian leadership, I think they are very clear that they would not like to relinquish their nuclear enrichment capability within the IAEA safeguards, which they think is their sovereign right under international law, and a measure of control over Strait of Hormuz, uh, albeit under the excuse of guiding the shipment through the uh, waters which are infested with the mines. Under that garb, they would like to keep that leverage because they wish to use that as an insurance. Then their insistence on complete ceasefire in southern Lebanon. That is also an attempt to protect one of their very strong proxies because it is in the nature of revolution to come to support of their allies. And Hezbollah is the last ally, which is really meaningful in the Middle East context. So they would like that also to be, which the Netanyahu is not responding very well, despite the several statements of President Trump. uh, they are still they are across the river Litani, and if that if those irritants remain, then the possibility of a complete comprehensive deal in quick time frame would be difficult. What could be clinched at this point of time is a kind of a ceasefire where both the conflict parties decide that they would not attack and would let the sea commerce take place, control or no control, so that this pressure on the global economy that ceases a bit and a climate of trust is created, especially amongst the Iranians, to go ahead and concede on certain points that are demanded by United States. So I think week or so, the time frame cannot be given, considering the basic principal contradictions and the fundamental irritants that still uh, are existing. But we should live in hope. And if a deal is clinched by President Trump, I think that would be another measure of his unconventional diplomacy and his unconventional approach. But we must not forget that he is quite beholden to Israel, and under his reign last time, East Jerusalem was made the was accepted as the Israeli capital. So there are so many irritants and there are so many possibilities, and we live in hope. I think Israel is stronger vis-a-vis United States when it comes to the political leverages in United States, especially amongst the MAGA base. Despite now the splits happening in the United States and people getting weary of this continuous round of roller coaster talks in war. But it's a fact that despite the angry outbursts, I think in terms of practical leverages, United States has very less leverage over Netanyahu government. But if they really want, they can put a stop to that aggression by withdrawing the support, by putting a moratorium on the munitions supply, for which Israel is heavily dependent on United States. But except rhetoric, the practical steps are not being taken, and that is encouraging Israel. That makes things very difficult. His approach, his mercurial nature, his contrariness, because when there is an element of mistrust already in the other protagonist in the conflict equation, then you have to be very careful, stable, circumspect in your utterances also, in your statements also, and in your framework that you have offered. So that certainly complicates things because the Pashtun Inqilab, the kind of losses they have suffered, and the kind of spirit that this attack has engendered in the population makes the decision making in IRGC and the Iranian leadership very difficult. And the statements of Mohsen Rezai, Ismail Bakai, those are reflective of those concerns, who have always consistently said that we have not given in to United States excessive demands, and we will not compromise on our sovereignty by way of our right to achieve peaceful nuclear enrichment and a certain measure of control over the Strait of Hormuz. Their statements have been very, very consistent, and I think that consistency is a function of the distrust that has been engendered because of the constant mercurial statements which have emanated from the United States side. But having said that, sometimes such unconventional diplomacy also works because if President Trump decides to rein in Israel strongly and wishes to make a major concession to Iran on any one of these points, for instance, sanctions, that would be a great confidence building measure. And Iranians definitely, they are badly hit. They need very badly need a respite, and they need time to rebuild their infrastructure. Their oil storages are filling up because of the blockade by United States. So they have their own problems, and they would be amenable to a solution provided the other party also shows sincere intent. That sincerity of intent is not either not been communicated well, or is there opacity in between, which needs to be bridged properly before either party accedes to the major demands. Yes, it does. Because once the hardliners see that Israel is practically giving shape to its greater Israel plan by way of continually expanding into southern Lebanon, even going beyond the river Litani, uh, annexing West Bank also, except the 18% that is still with Palestinian Authority, and going for the 70% complete territory of Gaza. So that does not inspire confidence amongst IRGC and the Iranian leadership, and that is complicating the matters. If the sincerity of intent has to be shown, then Israel has to be reined in. Israel should pull back its troops from southern Lebanon, and there should be a complete cessation of hostilities. And that would be a first sign of a confidence building measure. And Iranians would then would be more confident to consider that framework that has been offered to them, because under these conditions, how can they trust the American intent once America cannot control its own ally, which is on the rampage? Yes, it's the coherence has been badly hit. At the moment, the whole process is going on Desultorily, Pakistan is the only entity which is making a serious effort, and it's a very important cog in this whole process of peacemaking. But except that, it's all very desultory, it's all very uh, personalized, and it's talk, war. Both peace and war are coexisting. There are confused signalings, there is one-upmanship, and there are attempts to mind read the other party. So that makes the whole peacemaking process quite complicated. So it's not a simple thing, but the essential thing is that the fundamental decision has to be taken by Iran now. The framework is with them. It's their call whether they can take a big risk by trusting America. That's the pearl of high price they need to chase in the interest of peace.